Looks like we are now live. Okay, welcome everyone. So we're gonna wait until everyone makes it into the room. It looks like we're all trickling in. We are recording, by the way, so I just want everyone to be mindful of that. It should also alert you when you first enter. Okay, let's see. So we do have an active chat box, which is nice. So if anyone has questions throughout the presentation, definitely feel free to post any questions, comments. Doug will be in the chat room and I'll probably be able to catch some questions as well. So we'll give about maybe 2 more minutes or so, and then we'll introduce ourselves and then we'll get started. Let's see. For those of you that are already in here though, if you could put in the chat, maybe what undergrad you attended and which health profession you're aiming for, that would help us out a lot so we can see who we're chatting with tonight. Let's see, I hope the chat box is working. So I'm just gonna say this again in case anyone didn't hear. If you've joined us tonight, go ahead and put in, oh, perfect, Jamie's got it, but I'll just say it again. If you could put in your undergrad institution and which health profession you're aiming for into the chat box, that would be awesome. Thank you, Jamie and Alex. Awesome. Tulane, we got UC Davis. Yeah, we got New Orleans here. UCR, awesome. PA. Wonderful. UCD. Lots of Davis. Lots of Davis. Awesome.
I used to teach a class down at Tulane.
Yeah. Pretty cool. All right. Got a lot of Davis in here. That's awesome. So I would say we should probably go ahead and get started. We want to make sure we get you in and out. We want you to get the information, but not stay all night. We know it's kind of late. So I'm going to introduce myself first and I'll pass it over to Doug. So my name is Brielle McRae. I am the interim director of the Health Professions Post-Bac program. I've been advising for many years and really enjoy spending time with pre-health students and getting to know your stories and the different ways that you can bring value to the healthcare system. And so it's really exciting to be able to have this experience where you're going on a journey of academic enhancement, but at the same time, you're also provided with the advising that you really need to be successful. And so beyond that, in general, I just think that it's great that all of you are here trying to get the information about our program. We know that there are many other post-bac programs out there, so we're really excited that you're joining us here today. I'm going to pass it over to Doug to have him explain a little bit about himself and what he does for the program.
Hello, my name is Doug McLemore, and I'm a former chemistry professor who used to teach way back when at Colorado State University, teaching chemistry, like GChem, OChem, and whatever else in the chemistry world. Moved on from that into test prep. I actually got my first taste of test prep doing MCAT classes at UC, or at not UC, Colorado State University. And then I moved on to the French Review for like 10, 15 years. And then I went out off on my own, and then I became part of HPA about 2 years ago. And I'm on board with test prep and staff advising. So I'll be doing advising as well for the post-bac program. I have some experience there advising people going to grad school and going to med school and vet school and things like that through my position with Princeton Review and through when I was running my own company. So there you go. And that's who I am. And may the fourth be with you.
May the fourth be with you. Thanks, Doug. We're really excited to have Doug on the team. He's amazing. So if you're admitted into our program, you'll get a chance to get some really, really strong test prep structure, advising, all of that. So we're excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started. Again, if any of you have questions about the program, please feel free to post them in the chat. Doug, if you see anything that's pressing, please interrupt me at any point and we can tackle those questions as we go. Can everyone see this on my screen? I want to make sure everyone can see it before we start. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So again, this is the Health Professions Post-Bac program here at UC Davis. We start in January of every year, and we only have one cycle. We don't have multiple cycles, in like fall and spring. It's just one cycle that starts in winter quarter of every year. A lot of you may be familiar with the UC Consortium, which is a combination of post-bac programs, one location being at UC Davis School of Medicine. There's UC Riverside, UCSF, and UC Irvine as well. And that program has been around for a really long time. They bring in a little bit of a smaller amount of students than we do, and they tend to focus on students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, or other kind of a niche group of students. Our post-bac is open to all students. We do, however, make sure that we recruit and do our best to retain students from those backgrounds as well. But our program really is designed for everyone, and so that's a big difference between our program and maybe the consortium ones that you're seeing. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we start in January of every year. Most of the consortium programs are going to start in the fall. And so our program is designed to start in the winter, because what we want is we want you to go from winter quarter to spring to summer to fall, complete a full calendar year. So by the time you're done with the program, we're back at another January. You have time to take your exam, whether that's the MCAT, GRE, DAT, and prepare your application in enough time before most of the cycles open in June, right? So little bit better positioning was what we were trying to go for there. So I hope that makes sense. So another difference between our program and the other programs is that we serve all health professions. If you are aiming for the UC Consortium, they are geared only towards pre-med students. Now we do have a large amount of pre-med students that we serve in our program, but we are looking for students that are pre-PA, pre-dental, pre-nursing, pre-vet. So if you identify with any of those other health professions, this is a good program for you. We are a 12-month program or a single quarter option. Our previous cycle, which was our very first cycle, was actually under the 5-quarter model, which was a 15-month program. But we made an adjustment for this upcoming cycle because we like the idea of students kind of getting in and getting out. And in the 5th quarter previously, you actually were not taking classes. You were doing what's called your track experiences, which we've now just nicely integrated into the summer. So everything stays exactly the same. It's just that your track experience is now in the summer, and you'll be taking classes as well. So for our 12-month program, again, January start, you have built-in test preparation. So a lot of these, post-bac programs, and honestly, just a lot of test prep companies in general, you may notice that, if you're studying for, let's say, the MCAT, you're packaged into this kind of tight 3-month period, sometimes 4-month period, where you're kind of expected to cram and study full time, 40 hours a week, sometimes more for an exam. And it's kind of hard to really retain that information if it's just jam packed into 3 to 4 months. So Doug, which is, he's amazing. He's created this really nice year-long test preparation model where you're getting a little bit every day throughout the course of a year. So when it's time for you to take your test that following January, it's information that's not just going to be, quickly thrown out, right? It's information that's really kind of settling in and something that you'll be able to recall much later. So Doug will touch a little bit on that when we get to the test prep slide. But in general, having that type of slow and steady progression of knowledge is kind of what we're aiming for here. And we know that that process works. I do see a quick question from Gamar. What's the difference in terms of the application process for the 12-month program and the single quarter option? So I'll get to that a little bit later. Great question. But just to touch on the single quarter, this is more so designed for if you just need a few classes, right? Maybe you don't need a full year of academic enhancement. Maybe you might have already, demonstrated 2 quarters or so of a nice trend, and you just need a few more classes to kind of perfect that trend. Or maybe if you're pre-PA or pre-nursing and you just need, anatomy, microbiology, and nutrition, a few of the classes that you might not have been able to take in undergrad, you can take with us in a single quarter option. It's also good if you are not around our minimum GPA, but you're trying to use our program to jumpstart that academic enhancing process. So again, I'll touch on it a little bit later, but great question. The applications are different. The application processes are different, but we'll talk about that soon. Um, Track system for hands-on experiential learning. So previously we had three different tracks. We had a research track, we had a clinical track, and a health equity track. So we still do have clinical and health equity, but we no longer have the research track. And part of that was just because, putting students into a research lab for just 3 months sometimes can be a little bit stressful for the researchers because they're spending a lot of time training you for you to have to leave pretty quickly. So we felt like it was probably better to phase that out and just put a lot more energy into our clinical track and our health equity track. And we've been getting some good feedback about that. So again, I'll touch on that just a little bit later. And then our composite letter service. So many of you may be familiar with the committee letter, or the letter that's sent out on behalf of a pre-health committee to basically endorse you as an applicant to these health professional schools. So we offer that service if you are in our full program. If you are only in our single quarter option, that would not be available to you. So just keeping in mind, that's just a benefit of going through the more rigorous application process and getting accepted. And you would basically have a combination of letters that you got from our program, whether that be professors, that you were taking classes with. If, there may have been a chance where if you were doing the track experience and maybe you got really close to a health equity professor. It could be an EMT experience where you got close to a physician that maybe you were kind of rounding with. So we're going to put all of these letters together. And then as advisors, we're going to write a cover letter on top of that. Again, highlighting your strengths, endorsing you as an applicant, and trying to make it a little bit easier for these admissions committees to see the uniqueness that you bring and why you should be admitted, or why you're an applicant that stands out. So we're really excited to be able to offer that service. Again, I know I'm probably speaking pretty quickly, but if there are any questions, please put them in the chat. As I mentioned, Doug is available to answer any questions and can interrupt me, as I'm going. So this is just well, there's two infographics on this slide actually, but the first one is just to point out who we brought in last cycle. And, we're really, really excited about the students we've been able to work with. And you can see, out of our cohort of 50, we had 22 underrepresented minority students, 23 first generation, and 28 students that identified as disadvantaged students. There was an average cumulative GPA of 2.96. So again, some of this stuff is on our Facebook page. I don't want to spend too much time reading it, but I did want to point out, you can see that the lowest GPA we admitted was a 2.42. Now that's significantly lower than our 2.8 minimum, but again, we are reading applications holistically. If we really feel that a student has something, beyond their metrics, there could have been a period of time in their application or in their on their transcript where they demonstrated a really, really strong trend, even in the midst of that 2.42, and could have given a really strong reason as to why the grades were poor beyond that, or before that trend. So we're looking at everything, but I do encourage you to apply if you are closer to that 2.8 minimum, because those types of exceptions are not made often, but we just wanted to point out they are made depending on the situation. You can also see some of the schools that our students come from. So pretty good amount from UC Davis, which is kind of what we were expecting, a good amount just from the UCs in general. But it's really great to be able to have students from all over the country. And I think that's what probably makes our current cohort so cool. And, it's just a really nice experience kind of watching them interact with one another, because some of these students come from really small private schools on the East Coast. They've never experienced a UC system. And so watching the students who are, UC Davis alumni kind of help them through that transition is really nice. They're building a lot of teamwork together. And so they're bonding in a way that I think is really healthy. And I definitely feel like they enjoy being around each other. And, we're in a virtual space right now, so we haven't actually been able to, go to campus and get to know each other face to face. But from a virtual standpoint, they communicate a lot. There are lots of study groups, lots of things that they're doing together. So we're really looking for students that are collaborative in nature. We're looking for students that want to communicate with one another, that want to share resources, that want to be a part of a team. And so that's just a tip. If you are granted an interview, those are things that we care about. We're looking for people that are excited to be a part of a collective. So just wanted to point that out. And here's a snapshot of our curriculum and kind of what it would look like throughout the year. So you would start off in winter. We're going to start everyone off with 3 upper division science courses. If you do well, if you're able to get those straight A's, then once we hop into spring, summer, and fall, if you're able to handle 4 classes, then we'll put you in an additional class. But we don't want to start students off with 4 classes because, again, you're at UC Davis. It's a pretty bumpy ride. I'll say that. These are you're at a research institution, so the level of studying that's going to be required of you is significantly increased if you haven't already been a part of the UC system. So I want to caution you not to dive in too much too soon. We are looking for students who are ready for this level of intensity. At the same time, we don't want to overwhelm anyone. So you would be put into the 3 science classes. You would take 1 support seminar, which for the winter quarter would be learning and test taking strategies. You're going to learn lots of tips and strategies and ways to cope with test taking anxiety, trying to figure out how you learn best, and giving you strategies for tackling a lot of that as you transition into a post-bac program. You'll also be in your year-long MCAT prep seminar if you're pre-med. If not, you'll work with Doug in terms of DAT prep and GRE prep and kind of figure out the best plan of action, and which quarter that makes the most sense for your particular situation. You'll be in roughly 12 to 14 units for winter and spring. And then for summer, you'll be in 4 to 8 units. It'll probably be 8 in the summers when we're going to be offering our clinical hematology course and our human immunology course, which we want all of our students to be in. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of insight into what courses you'd be taking in addition to your tracks. So your clinical track or health equity. Going back to spring, you'd be taking medical terminology, which we thought was really great to actually have before the summer, because if you are learning the medical terminology and you happen to choose the clinical track, you're going to get you're going to be placed into the UC Davis EMT program, which is a really competitive program naturally, but because they're working directly with our program, we can place students right into it. You'll get EMT certified. So that's going to be really exciting, but it's great to have that medical terminology kind of background before you hop into the EMT program, so you really know what's going on and have a strong foundation there. Going into summer, your seminar is going to be narrative medicine. Many of you may have been kind of hearing that term, narrative medicine, and it's really just helping people narrate the value that they can bring to the healthcare field, or helping people narrate some of their past experiences that they've had and translating that into something that's easy for someone else to read and understand, and pull the value from it that the writer intended. And so that seminar is going to really catapult you to a place where the personal statement that you're going to write for your intended health profession is going to be very strong. So it's a really nice foundation layer before the application preparation seminar, which comes in fall. And in that, we're going to talk about everything from personal statements to creating your school list, writing your experiences appropriately, how to tackle secondaries, how to tackle interviews, pretty much walking you from beginning to end, everything related to preparing a really competitive application. And I also want to mention all of these seminars are taught by Joanne Snap. She was the former director of this program. She's amazing. She's been doing pre-health advising for over a decade. So these are seminars that I would say you're going to get a lot from. So I'm really excited to have her teaching those and transitioning you all from, kind of not knowing how to navigate this process at all to being really, really ahead of the game. So types of classes. These are just some examples. We have many more classes than this, but I just wanted to give you all a little bit of a snapshot of some of the classes that our students are taking. I can say as of now, students are really enjoying brain disorders. I get a lot of really great feedback about that one. I'd say students are, they're kind of going through it a little bit with anatomy. Anatomy is a tough course here, but it's a really great course to take before you go into a health professional program. Very challenging, but also extremely, extremely helpful. I've also been hearing a lot of great things about pharmacology. Students love that, as well as I'd say from this list, it looks like microbiology. They're liking the micro class too, but in general, right? Like when you're trying to put together your schedule, myself and some of the advisors, sorry, will kind of come together. We'll look at what classes you've already taken in undergrad. We're specifically going to be looking at classes where you got a C minus or below, even if those are not the prerequisite courses, which we'll kind of talk about later. We're looking at classes where you've got a C minus or below, or maybe you took a class, you got a C in it. However, there may be a particular class that's really helpful for the MCAT or really helpful for the DAT that you want to take just, kind of in preparation for getting ready for that exam. So again, we'll look at everything you've taken. We'll put together a year-long plan. We'll present it to you, and we'll ask, do you like it? Do you like these classes? If you don't, we can make adjustments, right? So nothing is set in stone. We will give you our recommendations, and ideally we want your transcript to look competitive, right? We want it to look like you've taken a rigorous course load. So we're not going to pair all the easy classes on your schedule together, right? There's going to be somewhat of a balance because this is your chance to prove to these health professional schools that I can handle functioning at a very high level, getting straight A's, and doing it for a continued period of time. That's what you're going to be doing here. So again, if you have any questions about these classes, or what are all the classes that are offered, we have that information. Feel free to shoot us an email. I'm going to type our email in the chat really quickly because we do answer that very frequently. So if anything pops up for you throughout this workshop that we didn't get to cover, towards the end, please feel free to shoot us an email. We'd love to answer that. Here's a sample schedule of what one of our students actually, I actually just pulled this directly from a current student that we have. So starting off with chemistry. Now we have these courses called reinforcement courses or refresher courses where you may have taken general chemistry a long time ago, but it's been a while. And again, you're going to need that for some of these standardized exams. So a student might start off with chemistry for health professions, doing cell bio, virology, and systemic physio. So pretty packed course load. Now, as I mentioned, in your first quarter, we ideally want you to just start off with 3 classes. I know there's 4 on here, but we definitely want you to start off with 3 unless you are really, really adamant that you want to take 4. But anyway, you would then hop into your learning and test taking strategies and do your MCAT seminar. So I won't spend, too much time touching on all of the quarters, but this just gives you somewhat of an idea of what a year-long schedule might look like in our program. And I can see a quick question in the chat. Are these classes specifically reserved for students in the program, or are they classes with undergrads in Davis? So there's a combination. The majority of your classes are going to be with undergrads at Davis, but some of the classes like those reinforcement courses like chemistry for health professions, organic chemistry for health professions, there's also a physics for health professions as well. Those are classes that are pretty much just the post-bac students. We also have hematology, immunology. Those are also reserved for just post-bac students. So there's a little bit of a balance, but I'd say the majority of your classes are going to be integrated with UC Davis undergrads. Let's talk a little bit about our tracks. So again, we have the health equity track, and then we also have the clinical track. If you are in the health equity track, if that's what you choose, the idea is that you're going to spend some time with the Betty Irene School of Nursing, and they have a lot of faculty studying health equity, doing research in health equity. And so you would join a course or some type of internship experience with them. And we're still kind of going through the kinks of that. There's been a few changes because of COVID, but still going to be an amazing experience. And we're kind of finalizing a lot of that. For the clinical track, you will become EMT certified. Um, if you're already an EMT, we do have some advanced clinical training that you can be a part of. So several of our students were already certified. And so we have some really great experiences lined up for them too, some more advanced paramedic work and things of that nature. And lastly, if you are pre-vet in particular, you'll be placed in a pre-vet experience, kind of working with the UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, uh, choosing some internships that interest you. We have a few to choose from and some faculty that we've been working with. So that would be something that you would work with your advisor with, as soon as you get into the program, and we would kind of figure out what your interests might be and where they might lie. So the advisors that we have for our program would be myself. It's also going to be Doug. So even though Doug does, oh yeah, you have a
No, I was
comment.
just saying,
Oh,
Doug.
okay. That is Doug. So Doug is also one of the advisors. So in addition to test prep, I don't want you all just going to Doug for your test prep needs. I also want you to utilize Doug as an advisor. Doug's been advising for a long time. So in general, Doug and myself will be your primary advisors, but Chelsea is our student services coordinator. So you would go to her for all things related to tuition. If you had questions about your student accounts, library access, things of that nature. And you'll meet all of us during orientation if you're admitted into the program, and you'll, kind of get more of the information about how to stay in contact with us throughout your transition into the program. And so we're really, really passionate about having this high touch model, which is you're not going to have to find us. And I know that a lot of other programs, the the challenge sometimes is that there's a lot of post-bac students, but it's kind of hard to get in touch with your advisors. So we have weekly appointments. You can meet with us every week if you need to. Even if you need to meet a little bit more than once a week, occasionally we definitely, do that. We have the weekly seminars that I mentioned that Joanne Snap is going to be teaching, and we kind of hang around after the seminars to answer any questions that may come up. We also have a Slack channel. So for those of you that don't know what Slack is, it's basically just a really great communication platform. And it's almost like instant messaging. So all of us are on Slack all day. I'm answering Slack messages all day in case students don't have time to book a 30-minute session with me. They have a quick question, they can just send me a Slack message. And I know Doug is in a lot of the different Slack channels. We have Slack channels for every single class. So if you want to know, like, who are all the other post-bac students in systemic physiology, there's likely going to be a Slack channel specifically for systemic physiology where you can communicate with those students. There's a Slack channel for test prep in general. There's even a Slack channel for mental health and wellness, just kind of connecting with students, and sharing kind of best practices for how to keep ourselves going in a healthy way. So I love the Slack channel, and the biggest point I'm just trying to drive home is that we're here for you. We're not hard to find. We answer emails very quickly, and we want you to know that we're going to be there for you every step of the way. And so one of the features of this new year that we've kind of implemented is now that we've gone from that 5-quarter model to the 4-quarter model, we have wraparound services, which basically means once you finish our program, again, you're going to go from a January. So let's say you're admitted into this current cycle. You're going to go from January 2022 until January of 2023. But after that, right, now is where the real work comes in, which is building your personal statement, your experiences, creating your school list, all those things. You will still have access to myself and Doug throughout that entire process. We really want you to understand that continuity of service that you're going to get from us. So just because you're done taking classes in the academic sense, right, you still have access to your support throughout your application process. Uh, so as you're coming into our program, we'll do an academic assessment. Again, we'll look at all your classes, see what you've taken and what you need. We'll create that academic planning sheet. You have access to that composite letter service, as I mentioned before, if you're in the full program. And then we have the application preparation that comes. So now I'm going to pass it over to Doug just to touch a little bit on what test prep looks like in our program and a little bit more about how it's structured.
Alrighty. So when it comes to test prep, I firmly believe there's there's four key pillars that make test prep happen. And to that extent, we make sure that all four of those things are addressed. And there's a particular order in which we should address them. First off is accuracy. Working on your ability to answer questions accurately. Who cares about time at first? We don't care about the time. You just got to be able to be right and understand what the question's asking you to do and that kind of thing. So that's our main focus, at least for a couple months. Then we start shifting into timing. Once you increase your accuracy, then you have to get to go a little bit faster while keeping that accuracy. And so then there's a little bit of waffling. Okay, I speed up, I went down, but then I stay at that time until I get to a good solid space where I'm getting all those questions right, and so on and so forth. So accuracy comes first, then timing comes next. Then comes stamina. So not only do you have to be accurate and do it in a quick way, you have to also do it 10 times in a row, say for the MCAT, because you got 10 passages in a row, or you have to be able on the DAT, do it for 100 questions in a row. And so you have to be able to do these tasks repeatedly. So we start working on stamina, doing more and more and more at any one given sitting. And then all of that is to be by the end of all of this, we're building confidence. The idea is that we're doing this at such a slow pace. You just do a little bit at a time that you feel successful. Like when you make a change, it actually feels like you're doing something. Even if your score goes down a little bit, sometimes you are making a positive change. And actually, we've had that discussion just recently in the program where my score went down because I tried something new. Well, good, it should. If you try something brand new, it shouldn't do the same thing. You should probably screw up a little bit. So success is not measured by score alone, and that is a core principle of what we look at. Success is measured by confidence. Confidence means better scores all the way around, and so that's what we hope to do, is create an environment where you're basically walking into the test going like, I got this. I've done this a million times. So and I plan on adding more DAT OAT tests to that bulk. So like we've got 16 and 10. Well, DAT OAT is a little bit more difficult. We're going to add in more tests to that practice coming soon, just because I want them to be, every test to get the same rigor as all the other tests. So that's sort of my philosophy behind it. Slow and steady always wins the race, and that's the way we're setting this up. MCAT is a force. We start in the first quarter and go all the way through the end. GRE, we start in the summer because GRE is a smaller test, of course. There's only math and English on it, and it's usually easier for people to do improvements on that in a more quick pace. And then DAT and OAT, we do somewhere in the middle, which is going to be starting in the spring quarter and going 3 quarters of class instead of 4 quarters like the MCAT. So it's sort of scaled, tiered based on the overall difficulty of the tests. And then tests like TEAS, PA-CAT, HESI, all these other tests that are out there, we take those on a one-off basis because we generally won't have that many people. If anything, we'll have one person doing one of those tests at any given time. So that'll be more of a tailored type of program. And that is as we say that.
All right. Thank you, Doug. So let's keep going. We're kind of coming a little bit closer to the end here, so there's not too many more slides. So let's talk about requirements. So as I mentioned before, we are going to use a holistic approach. Now, we have a minimum 2.8 verified post-bac GPA requirement. However, if you have, kind of like that distance travel, right? If you've been through many things, you have a lot of things that you need to explain, I encourage you to still apply for our program, kind of still having that idea of where we would like you to be. And the reason why we would like you to be at least at a 2.8 is because realistically, within 1 year, your GPA cannot jump from a 2.8 to a 3.5. It's just not going to happen, right? But what we do want is to try to get you as close to that 3.0 hump, trying to get you over that hump as best as possible, because in general, for a lot of these health professional programs, a cumulative GPA of a 3.0 and a cumulative science GPA of a 3.0, it just gets your foot in the door, okay? A lot of these schools do kind of have those it's kind of like you're getting past that little gate, right? So I'm not saying that a 3.0 GPA is the most competitive GPA, but it does kind of position you a lot better for some of these programs. So again, if you are at a 2.4 cumulative GPA, a 1 year post-bac might take you to a 2.6, might take you to a 2.7, but it's not going to do a whole lot. So for some students, Our program may be a stepping stone to something else, or it may just be that you're going to have to really, really choose your school list very, very carefully. But to prevent all of that and to make sure that you're getting your money's worth, I really do encourage you all to apply when your GPA is a bit closer to that 2.8, if not above. Um, and when we're talking about a verified post-baccalaureate GPA, this is really important. We are not talking about the GPA that you see if you went to UC Davis for undergrad, for example. We are not talking about your college GPA or your university GPA. Post-baccalaureate takes into account every class you've ever taken. So this can be from community colleges before you transfer to undergrad. It can be a community college class you took in high school. So any class you've ever taken at the college level needs to be sent in an official transcript directly to Post-Baccalaureate. We do not accept any emails of transcripts. We don't want any emails of letters of recommendation. Everything must go through Post-Baccalaureate. That's really, really important. The other thing is, which it'll come on our next slide, our deadline is July 23rd. You need to have a verified application by July 23rd. That does not mean you can submit your application on the 23rd, because the verification process can take anywhere from 1 week to 5 weeks. It just depends on how many students are submitting on the Post-Baccalaureate platform. So I encourage you to apply early. I'm really, really stressing that. Please apply during the month of May if you can. That's what we kind of consider our priority application period, where we're looking a little bit more closely at things, might be a little bit more forgiving of certain things. But I would say if I were you all and kind of going through this process, I'd probably submit my application no later than July 1st, which allows that, additional 23 days just to get verified. That's about 3 weeks or so. Should be fine. I'm saying 1 to 5 weeks on the long end, but it's usually somewhere around 1 to 3, I'd say. But again, I just want you all to, play it safe and try to make sure that your application is verified by our deadline. We want no more than 1 C minus or below in a prerequisite course. So what that means is we want you to have completed all of the prerequisites that you need for your intended health profession. But let's say, for example, you got an A in organic chemistry 1, a B in organic chemistry 2, but then maybe a D in organic chemistry 3 if you were on the quarter system, for example. It's okay to have that D in that third class and then, apply to our program, because we can give you a organic chemistry refresher course to replace that. We can only give you one of those. So in the event that maybe you got an A in the first one, but a D and then a C minus in the second two, you need to take care of one of them before you apply to our program. Now, the question I get often is, can I apply to the program, but then, as long as I've completed that, that class that I was just mentioning before the start of January, is that okay? That is okay, but you need to communicate that with us. So when you're applying, and you're answering our application questions, it would be helpful if you put in there, I recognize that I have 2, C minuses or below in a series, but I will be retaking one of them before the start of January. So by the time I start your program, I'm only going to be retaking that final one with you. Question, Doug?
Yeah, the question is, are letters of rec needed before the app can be verified?
Great question. They're not. So you can actually submit your letters of recommendation a little bit after the verification process. However, the later your letters come in, the later we're going to review your app, right? So you may be verified and ready to go, but we're not going to read your application until we've gotten all the letters that you said that you were going to submit. So all that does is just, because we're on rolling admissions, it can kind of put you in a little bit more of a competitive pool towards the end. So short answer is they're not needed for verification. Long answer is I would try to still submit them sooner rather than later. Good question. You have to have a bachelor's degree from a US college or university. Unfortunately, we're not in the place in this program right now where we're accepting international degrees or anything of that nature. Even if they've been certified by WES, we're still not accepting applications of that nature as of now. So it must be from a US college or institution. We need official transcripts from every undergraduate institution you attended, even if you transferred, from 1 year, you may have gone to Michigan State, then you may have gone to UC Riverside. whatever that looks like. We need all of those transcripts. We need 2 letters of recommendation. One needs to be from a science professor that actually taught you in a didactic course, not just a professor that maybe you did research with, but we really want to see a letter from someone who taught you in a course. And I'll say this, if you've been out of school for more than 2 years, it is okay to just send 2 professional letters. We understand that, you know, if it's been a while, you may not have access to that letter from a science professor. So in that case, it's okay. Quick question, can I send a
So
letter?
there's 2 questions. One is relevant because I believe you're talking about the accredited U.S. college or university. So I think this addresses Mina's question.
Okay.
She's asking, she is now a legal resident of the U.S., but did her degrees in Turkey and Afghanistan, and I've evaluated my undergraduate master's degree credits. So apparently that's that service I think you were talking about. We would not be able to put somebody like that into our program.
Correct. Yeah, we're not able to admit students into our program at this time. However, Mina, I encourage you to start reaching out to some PA schools directly, because I noticed you mentioned that you don't have a science background. So this program is actually designed for students who do have a really solid science background, who have taken all the prereqs and all of that. So the first step for you would be to go somewhere. It could be a community college or it could be a state school, and take all of the science prerequisites that you need for PA school. But then the very next step after that, is I want you to reach out directly to some of the PA programs that you might be interested in, because some of them will take foreign coursework, others may not, but only they can answer that. A post-bac program or a special master's program typically wouldn't be able to answer that question for you. But if you kind of do some research and get a list of schools that do accept it, you'd be in pretty good shape. Just got to take the science prereqs first.
The other question is, can post-bac CAS accept from Interfolio, which I believe that answer is no.
And yeah, so you'd have to have the letter writer, instead of using it directly from Interfolio, that letter writer would have to send it directly to post-bac CAS. I know that's a bit of a bummer, but that's just kind of how that platform goes.
Then the follow-up on that is, what if you don't have a second letter of rec from a professional?
If you don't have a second letter of rec from a professional, it's tough. You would want to find one, or at least find someone that can speak to your capabilities. Now, when we're talking about a professional, that doesn't just mean, you know, a supervisor. It could be someone that's watched you as a volunteer. It can be someone that has just kind of seen your leadership grow over time. As long as it's not a family member, you know, there are many different people that might qualify as a professional. And then I also kind of argue, you know, if you really just have no professional that can write for you, that's something that you do kind of want to consider, right? Because you're going to need a lot of letters of rec for these programs. So that may just be an aspect of your application that you want to work on. And it might just mean you're not quite ready for this program just yet, because keep in mind, you're going to be competing with students that do have the letter of rec from the science professor, the letter of rec from the professional. So that just may be a moment of kind of self-reflection and trying to figure out, how can I build better relationships with professionals moving forward? And so we also have some personal statement prompts that you'll have to fill out. If you want to see what the prompts are ahead of time, they're on our website. And the character limit is 3,000 characters, including spaces. So about a couple paragraphs or so per essay. If you don't have the minimum GPA, and particularly if you don't have any demonstration of an upward trend anywhere in your grades. And when I say an upward trend, I mean B's or better, you know, for at least a quarter or a semester. If you've never been able to demonstrate that, consider our single quarter option, because there is no minimum GPA requirement for it. It's just a chance for you to kind of get your feet wet and you know, take these upper division science courses and work on improving with taking these classes and being successful. So how to apply? We are, again, on Post-Baccalaureate. That's our platform. And again, they're collecting all application materials. Please note emails directly to us about application materials. Our cycle runs from May 1st through July 23rd. It's rolling, so applying early is recommended, as I've been saying. Thank you, Doug, for posting our email if you have any questions. So the way that Post-Baccalaureate works is the first application that you submit will cost $130. but then it's $50 for every additional program. So if you're applying to 5 different programs on post-baccalaureate and our program is not your first program, our program fee is just $50. But if our program is the first one you're submitting, or maybe the only one you're submitting, it would be the $130 because we're the first program, right? And then you wouldn't have to worry about that $50 program fee because we would just be that first. Okay, so if you're on post-baccalaureate, just kind of take some time, try to understand how that goes. And they also have really nice informational videos on there if you have specific questions about submitting applications directly on post-baccalaureate. But again, if you have any questions or you're hitting any snags, please shoot us an email. We'd be happy to help you navigate that. And so this is the part that no one likes to talk about, right? Which is the money. So our entire 12-month program costs $30,000, roughly the cost of attending UC Davis for a full year. This does not include housing, health insurance, books, transportation, or other living expenses. So you're strictly paying for tuition. You're paying for all your test preparation throughout the entire year. The really high touch advising, which again is a part of our program that we're really happy about and really proud of, to be able to spend so much time with our students, as well as the hands-on training for EMT, the health equity internship and coursework that you're going to be doing, and the composite letter service as well. So we do not currently qualify for federal loans. So most of our students are funding this through either private loans or other funding sources, which for some students, they were able to secure a couple of scholarships. I will just say in general, I want you all to be aware that, post-bacs are not technically undergrad, but then it's also not technically graduate school. So it falls in this really weird category, and there's not a lot of funding for it. So I encourage you, if you are struggling to afford this or pay for this, it may be a good idea to actually save for a little bit before you apply to the program, so that you have a cushion as you transition in. And again, some of our students are kind of having family members help out. And, when it comes to working in our program, it's something that we really do not encourage, because you are going to be studying a lot. I'm going to say that again. You are going to be studying a lot. So one of the reasons that I think that most students need a post-bac program is because when they were in undergrad, they were really passionate. They had a lot of, clubs that they wanted to join. They had a lot of different events and conferences and things that they needed to tend to at that time, were things that they felt that they really needed their attention. And so because of that, that's how you kind of get into the situation where my grades are slipping, right? I'm not able to keep the trend that I wanted to have. And so in this program, just for the span of 12 months, we're really asking to eliminate all extracurricular activities. Now, we know that that's challenging considering the price of the program and the lack of federal funding, but there are many students that are able to, kind of pull their resources together and make it work. Again, if you have more questions about that, please shoot us an email, and we can also connect you with Chelsea. Again, she's our student services coordinator. She handles a lot of the tuition related questions. And lastly, you'd want to have proof of your own healthcare insurance. So those are all the slides I have. It took a little bit longer than I had wanted it to, but any questions that are popping up that Doug or myself can answer? We have a good 10 minutes, so we're happy to
the
tackle
single quarter option, does it require letters of rec, personal statement, etc.?
It does not. It doesn't require any of that. We'll just do a brief look at your transcripts just to make sure everything looks pretty decent, but we're not scanning for letters of rec. We're not scanning for personal statement. It's kind of like a first come, first serve. We have about 10 spots available per quarter. So as long as you sign up pretty early, you should be fine. It's not a rigorous process at all.
When does that open?
Yeah, so the dates are on our website. Let me see if I can pull up that page really fast. We do not have the single quarter option for this upcoming summer, but we do have it for fall. I just don't have the date memorized. Give me 1 second.
While you're finding that, I'll answer the next question of, could you re-explain the no more than 1 C- in the same series requirement? The reason for that, Philip, is if you have, say, a B in in section A B in section B, and a C- in section C, that's something that means you've got the bulk of the course taken care of, and our refresher course can probably help you get up to speed on that. And we could actually get you in, if necessary, into that course to redo it, to like recap that grade to get it above the prereq requirement that has to be a C or higher. If we have more than one of those, though, then it starts to become an issue with packing the schedule with retakes than it does with new classes, which is what a post-bac needs to be doing, is showing that you're doing new things at a high rigorous level. So if you have more than one C-, then you might look into doing maybe a couple community college classes before you come to here, or that's where the 1/4 option becomes a nice option where we might be able to help you out with that as well. But it's just a matter of time. And this kind of a program, being a 1-year program, can't accommodate for that.
Yep. Thank you.
Brielle?
Yeah, I just want to share my screen just to quickly answer Gamar's question. So Gamar, if you can see this, this is on our, I clicked admissions application process. So you can see that for the summer quarter, we don't have a single quarter option, but for fall 2021, that opens in July. And the deadline for the fall 2021 is August 23rd. Now for winter 2022, that's a little ways out. I would say in general, our application closes about 1 month before the start of the single quarter. So we're looking more towards November-ish would probably be the deadline for winter 2022. So I hope that's helpful. And then to answer Tyler's question, let me stop sharing. To answer Tyler's question, I just saw it. Oh, we do not currently have a linkage to any medical school. And honestly, you won't find linkages. Sorry, my computer's dancing. You won't typically find any linkages to medical schools in post-bac programs in California. It just seems like that's not something that's super popular out here, but you'll find a lot of linkages and like on the East Coast and a lot of those post-bac programs out there. We hope to one day have some really strong articulation agreements with medical schools, but as of now, we don't have any. But that's a really good question. Doug, did you already tackle Philip's question?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure that was the one. Any other questions? These are all really great. Anything else popping up? None?
This question came up earlier. I'll just recap it for everybody because I just did it in the chat. What if I already took my standardized test? Do I need to do the test prep portion? And no, you do not have to do the test prep portion, although I do think it would be a good conversation to have about, like, is the score where you want it to be? Is it the score where you need it to be? And, you know, if you want to retake, we can also help you with that as well.
Awesome. And then I see, just to answer the question about if this is being recorded, this is being recorded, Amber, and it will be posted on our website. So just stay on the, just be on the,
I'll type in the address.
Yeah, perfect. To answer Alex's question, what is your success rate after the program in terms of medical school application? So again, we're a brand new program. So we just brought in our first cohort this past cycle. So we will see how well they did in 2023. So it's a bit of a, it's a bit of a journey because they'll spend a full year with us. Then there's like a 6-month gap to when they're applying. Then there's a full year of the application cycle. So check back in with us in 2023 and we'll have some numbers for you. And Gamar said, if you reapply to the program next year, is it the same process and application? Yes, it's the exact same process every year. Nothing will change there. In
Tyler, the answer to your question is the same as what Brielle just said.
Yeah,
about the fact we haven't had anybody move on just yet because we're a first-year program this year.
And just to give you all some background, we've been advising pre-health students for a long time. Our students do really well at UC Davis in terms of beating the national average. So the national average in general for like students getting into medical school is somewhere in the 30% range. Davis is about 45%. So we do pretty well year to year getting students in. So now that might not seem like a big number, but that's a significant number when it comes to getting into med school. So it's not that we're new at getting students into medical school. It's just a newer program that we've put together, but we've been doing this for years. So you're definitely in good hands. We know what we're doing, and we're passionate about this work. And I think that's the difference between some advisors who maybe advise because it's just a job versus advisors who are really passionate about students seeing that success, getting in and really investing their time. So that's why we're so excited that we have so much time to dedicate to you all individually to get to know you, figure out your strengths, figure out your weaknesses, and craft your application in a way where it's truly showcasing the value that you bring. So we hope you all apply and that we get to meet some of you.
Natalie has a question saying, so the C- in the series just means I would need to take a refresher course for that series in the program. Yes, but we have a lot of people doing the refresher courses as a matter of course anyway, just because of the test prep portion. It helps you get ready for, say, the MCAT or the DAT, because those are also components. A question I think that might be a natural follow-up, Brielle, is if somebody does that refresher course, would that count with a med school or something as far as retaking it for their C or better?
Yes, it does count. So it's almost like if you had the option to retake that class during undergrad, you would just take that extra course. So I'll give you probably a better example. If I had gotten a C- at UC Davis in the third portion of organic chemistry, I could go to a community college and take the second semester of organic chemistry or the third quarter of their organic chemistry, and that would replace it in the eyes of medical school. So yes, your refresher courses will function as a retake of that lower grade in their eyes. Great questions. Any other questions? We have about 4 more minutes, so lay it on us. We're here. Any other things popping up? Well, if not, it was really great spending this hour with you all. We have another webinar. I should probably have that date handy. We have another webinar on, it is on, here we go, on Friday, June 4th. So it's exactly 1 month away from now. So if you wanted to kind of chat with us again, if you have more questions, definitely tune into that webinar. If not, please shoot us an email. As I mentioned, we're really easy to get a hold of. We love also having phone conversations. So if you're not sure if this is the year that you should apply, or if you're wondering, is the full program a better idea for me rather than the single quarter program? Any questions related to your particular standing as it pertains to you applying for our program, go ahead and shoot us an email. Happy to schedule a phone conversation to chat with you through some of those questions and thoughts you might have. But again, it was great spending the hour with you. We hope to hear from you, hope to be able to read your applications and spend time getting to know you. So any final thoughts, Doug, before we wrap up?
I've got nothing specific. I think you had a lot of great questions tonight, so thank you for coming down and asking those questions and holding us accountable for all this wonderful information. So
awesome. Well, I hope you all have a good night, and I hope to be able to chat with some of you soon and connect. So have a good night.
I want to see all those applications from you guys.
Yes, we love to see them all. So have a good night. Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.